Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I rise to take note of answers provided by Senator Cormann, who I asked in his capacity as Finance Minister. It's impossible to tell, amidst this headless monster that the government has become on matters of tax policy, exactly who is driving the bus and who is in charge. But one thing is very clear, that this government has no interest whatsoever in housing affordability. And it is not even a kind of benign neglect. It's hostility. It is approaching government with a scorched earth approach where they burnt to the ground everything that the previous government had put in place. Peak body funding for groups like Homelessness Australia, the National Rental Affordability Scheme, capital budgets for homeless and crisis support shelters, $44 million torched, disappeared and not back in the budget. And this is the problem, that there are more than 100,000 homeless people in this country right now. 44,000 or so of them are young people and children. And the greatest single cause of homelessness in this country right now is domestic violence, is women, many of them with kids, fleeing homes that are too unsafe to remain in. That is the situation that faces 100,000 people. Roughly 10% of those are sleeping rough. That is in a doorway or in parks or in completely transient accommodation, in cars. And against that systematic, malign neglect of this 100,000 Australians who have nowhere to go, we have, over the forward estimates, Parliamentary Budget Office estimates, of $22 billion worth of incentives for property speculators, for people buying their investment properties, their first, second, third investment property. People like Senator Matthias Cormann, who has 2 residences and 2 investment properties. People like the Foreign Minister, Ms Bishop, 2 residences, 3 investment properties. Good on her. Senator Brandis, quite frugal, 1 residence, 1 investment property. Senator Fifield, 1 residence, 2 investment properties. Mr Turnbull, the Prime Minister of Australia, 3 residences and 5 investment properties. Good for you. And how has that come about? Why? What is it that it makes it so tax effective for property speculators to bid into the property market to start stacking up these properties? And I should say those figures that I've just quoted are from the Register of Interests that are a year or so old, and I will apologise if more purchases and acquisitions have been made or if there are any other changes in the record since we last looked. But the fact is, I put the question to Senator Cormann not long ago, and it's as though you get something back from a random answer generator. You don't get anything even remotely comprehensible to the question that we put to him. So here is what I would put to Senator Cormann. Consider these words, and I quote, "The build-up of investors outcompeting homeowners leaves young Australians disenfranchised and locked out of the housing market." Now, Senator Cormann said that those were matters of opinion, not of fact. But that is a quote by the Reserve Bank of Australia's Head of Financial Stability. So it's not just Moody's, it's not just Professor Eslake, and it's not others across the housing sector, the housing affordability sector, people working on homelessness, people at the crisis end of the spectrum, saying that the $22 billion incentives for property speculation are bidding up prices and locking people out of the market. And it makes me sick when I hear people in this place and the other place talking about it's just supporting honest mums and dads. Well, mums and dads are renters as well. Mums and dads are homeless as well. And the reason that the front bench of the government can come in here and speak to and pretend to simply be speaking for those mums and dads, those honest property investors, and quote blatantly misleading statistics from the Property Council and others, who say that some 840,000 Australians with taxable incomes below $80,000 are using negative gearing. They're very careful to always say taxable incomes, and those taxable incomes are after deductions like negative gearing have been applied. And it's a remarkable deception to then come in here and say it's just ordinary mums and dads, when in fact only 10% of people earning a total income from $50,000 to $100,000 are claiming a net property loss. The fact is the biggest winners from negative gearing and capital gains tax exemptions are the top end of town, are the top 10% of income earners. And you know it. Don't pretend you don't know it. The idea that you would push these massive incentives into the property market and then step back and say it's not the role of the state to intervene in housing affordability is absolutely disgraceful. And thank goodness this debate in this country is finally joined.
Thank you, Senator Ludlam.